Like to stand, please.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Our mission statement says that the Richmond Community Schools, in partnership with the community, will help all children believe in themselves, respect others, and experience the joy of learning. Through effective teaching, children will first learn the basic skills, including thinking skills, using words, numbers, and ideas. In addition, children will be given the opportunity to learn more of what they want and need to know. Adults will model behavior that will teach children to resolve conflicts successfully, take risks with new ideas, and understand that they can err without being judged. And moving on to our agenda, we're going to move some things around tonight. So we're going to start out here with our consent items.
And the consent items consist of approval of the May 23rd, 2012 minutes and the May 30th, 2012 minutes. A recommendation by Human Resources, which includes an addendum that has been posted on the web, that also contains a recommendation for hiring of 2 individuals who are in the audience tonight, and I would suggest upon approval, if so done by the board, that we invite them forward. Recommendation to approve the Civic Hall Wayne County Foundation grant. Recommendation to approve an application from Crestdale Elementary for a STAM Coastline Family Foundation grant. Recommendation to approve the Alternative Education grant. Recommendation to approve the Curtis and Livers Consulting Agreement. A recommendation to file for reports the Richmond High School Student Handbook. Also filing of the report from the Early Learning Center Target Literacy Grant. Those are the items.
Do I hear a motion to accept the consent items as presented?
So
Jeff Slifer makes a motion and Suzanne Darengowski seconds the motion. Are there comments or questions?
Yes, I have a question
Dixie?
on the Early Learning Center Target Literacy Grant. Why are we approving this after it's already?
It was a requirement of the grant for the board to approve a final report.
Okay. And on the other grants, do we ever see the entire grants?
They're available for your inspection if you would like to. Some of these are just year after year. It's the same one, and so we don't include the entire document, but it's always available upon request.
Okay.
Other comments and questions? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Consent items are carried. And now you said...
We have a couple of individuals that I would like to ask to come forward. First one, Stephanie Talbot. If you noticed, she, upon your action tonight, is our new assistant principal at Dennis Intermediate School. She has a fan club back there with her.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
It's always nice to see someone from Richmond who's vested in Richmond stay in Richmond.
They have your resume, but would you like to comment on what prompted you to make the application for that for that position?
Well, like you said, I'm from Richmond. I went to Garrison and then Hibbard in the high school. I went to Ball State and came back here and taught at Discovery School and then Star, and got my administrative license under Susie Hively. Actually, she recommended me for a program I went through, IEPUI, and got my administrative license. And I knew that I wanted to pursue it, but wasn't really looking for anywhere but Richmond, so was thrilled when all the openings came available and lucky enough to get one.
Anyone else have any questions or comments?
I should note that the selection process involved a full complement of employees from Dennis Middle School. I'm not sure if there were some elementary staff members, okay, who will be a part of the intermediate program. But one of the concerns that we had all the way along was that the assistant principal, whoever that was, would have an elementary background, because the intermediate school will have such an emphasis on maintaining some elementary consistency in those classrooms of 5 and 6. So it's very helpful to have someone with that elementary foundation as we combine those student bodies.
What excites you the most? I read something that said you're kind of excited about the intermediate school. Tell us what you mean by that.
I think that all through school, I mean, I loved Richmond, but my favorite years were my middle school years, and most people say the opposite of that. But I really am intrigued by middle school. I think that it's a fun time of year or a fun time of a kid's life, but also challenging. So I'm excited to be a part of it, and with the just the whole new concept in Richmond, I'm excited to kind of help get it going, and the positive energy, keep it moving.
Good.
Well, thank you for being here.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Congratulations. And I'd like to ask our new Vale Elementary School principal, Kathy Cribble, to come up to the podium. And would you like to tell the board a little bit about yourself and why you expressed an interest in Vale Elementary?
Gosh, I've been around education for 36 years. I went to Ball State hoping to become a physician because I thought physicians really could make the difference in the world. And as part of my way of supporting myself in college, I worked at Burris Laboratory School. And at Burris, I was a teaching assistant for one of the most remarkable second grade teachers you can imagine. And I thought, oh my gosh, yeah, physicians are important, but my goodness, teachers can make a difference in the world. And from that moment, I went into education. I'm lucky enough to say that I don't regret a minute. I look back and say, if I were 19, I would make the same choice all over again. I've spent time at Washington Carver Elementary in Muncie, inner city, for 10 years as a teacher. That was my first position, so I think that's kind of where I grew up as an educator. Then I've been to Rushville Elementary as a fifth grade teacher. I have been at Blue River as a sixth grade teacher. At Washington Carver, I taught K1 and 2, so I've had that real experience that goes kind of across the board, and I think I understand teachers at about any grade level and the kinds of things that they're, going through and working on. Went into administration after 20 years of experience. Spent 2 years at Hagerstown as an assistant. Spent the last 13 years at Northeastern as the principal there. And so why would I leave? And as I told Dr. Borf, I'm ready for a new challenge. I'm ready for a change, something different. 13 years is the longest I've spent in any one school. And I'm ready to try something new, and hopefully I can come to Richmond, and like I wanted to when I was 19, maybe I can make a little difference too.
Does anybody have any comments or questions they would like to ask? Well, we look forward to working with you. And
thank you.
Thank you for being here, and congratulations.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Oh, I do need to leave because I have a board meeting to attend.
So we're back to
2 in 1 night.
We are.
So we're going to move back to public commentary now. The Board of School Trustees recognizes the value of public comment on educational issues and the importance of allowing members of the public to express themselves on corporation matters. The Board has set aside 2 30-minute periods for public comment during each board meeting. The maximum time for individual speakers is 5 minutes per person. Comments recognizing the work of staff and students are always welcome. However, critical remarks concerning specific school personnel or students are to be made through the complaint process available in Policy 9130. Public comments requiring no research, investigation, or review may receive response from the board, and the administration as appropriate. Do we have anyone who is signed up to speak?
We do. Susie Hively.
Well, hello.
Hi, Susie.
I mentioned this idea to Elisa this afternoon, and so I told her that one of the problems with leaving a woman alone in a building packing boxes is that their brain just keeps going and going and going, and mine has been doing that now for quite some time. And one of the things that I decided was that one of the problems with the retirement process is there's lots of opportunities for other people to celebrate that person, but that person doesn't have the opportunity to say thank you and to say, here's what you're doing right, keep on doing it. And here's what, if the one thing maybe I might suggest, that I think you might consider doing differently or adding to your game plan. And when I think about what I would say about in those areas, my own experience in Richmond has been so diverse that it's hard for me to narrow it down, but I am determined to stay within, who's the timekeeper tonight? 5 minutes?
I am.
Okay.
You haven't started yet. Turn it over.
Oh, there it is. Okay, I
No
can see it
pressure
right.
there.
Oh, gosh, I've already lost some. First of all, Richmond Community Schools has a real hidden gem that I want to make sure that you advocate for and nurture into the future, and that is the adult education program. The adult education program, I sort of fell into it. It wasn't something I set out, oh yes, please let me direct the adult education program. But I am so pleased that I've had that opportunity. It is something that we do for our community that provides such a chance for people to renew their lives, redirect themselves, and I really feel like it's has an extreme value to the community, and I really urge you to continue to foster it. And I really thank you for the opportunity to have been involved with it. It is really special. It's special because it does give that second, third, fourth, whatever chance it needs to be for that person. And there are a lot of people out there who need those opportunities, so we need to give them to them every chance we have. The other areas that I've worked in, I will have taught in half the elementary and intermediate schools that will be open next year. I have also taught in half the buildings or programs that have closed while I've been in Richmond. So I've moved around a lot, and the reason I've moved around a lot is because of my professional interests have changed over the years. And when middle school came along, I was teaching 6th grade, and I thought, wow, that sounds really cool. And when we came into Literacy Collaborative and we were working in that area, I thought, oh, I need to go back to elementary school. Plus, my kids had gotten into middle school, and you just can't do that age group 24/7. So, you do things for your own self-preservation, and you do things because they sound interesting and creative. But some of the things that have been consistent in Richmond over my career have been the support given to people to try new things and to really go out and follow their dreams. I know I got to know Dixie really well when we became cooperative learning trainers, and that became of something that Dwayne Hodgen, I remember I wrote him, and it was a note back in those days, not an email, saying, you sent around this article, but how do we find out more? And Dixie must have done something similar, because we got called in to, well, if you're interested, I'll send you to this meeting over here and that meeting over there, and pretty soon we trained with the Slavin brothers and out at Johns Hopkins. And that was a fascinating experience. And we were given, it just sort of evolved, as many things in Richmond sort of evolve. So I want you to maintain that support for evolving ideas. I know Linda received that support when she got interested in Literacy Collaborative and brought us all along, and that was such a wealth of training for our teachers that when we went back to a basal, which when I use the word back, it wasn't really a backward step, but it provided them with the training that they needed to really make that really a positive exchange and experience. I've had the blessing of being at Highland 4 different times in my career, and in some ways, I'm going to go over, sorry.
It would be out of character for her not to.
But in some ways, Highland represents Richmond Community Schools in many ways. It has a 70% free and reduced rate. It's got a very diverse student body. It covers geographically about a third of the district, maybe not 20% of the district, because it just goes from 35 to the state line and down into town. It's a huge district. And that diversity is reflected in the staff as well. And the staff has been very different all 4 times that I've worked there. But the things that have been consistent have been that it is a family atmosphere. It is where people are respected and welcomed and nurtured. It is a atmosphere where everyone is focused on the best interests of students. And if those are things that I've experienced in my other assignments in Richmond, but I think you need to understand how important that is. And again, that goes back to nurturing those opportunities for people to grow and do things because they are stimulated by the challenge or the creativity of that opportunity. I am really excited about the new alignment of grades that you have. And when I heard the Vail position was open, I was like, I decided that really wouldn't be fair because I really don't think I could commit at this point in my life to 3 or 4 years at the school, and so that wouldn't be fair to the school. But I thought about it because I love what I'm doing now, and I know that that's one of the reasons I think I've been halfway decent at my job or at my jobs. And for those of you who don't even know, I actually started in Richmond as a paraprofessional at Garrison, and I didn't have a car, so the school bus went around the corner by my house, so I rode the bus to and from school with the kids. I don't know if you could do that nowadays. And
why not?
And people, all from that point on, I have felt supported and nurtured, and I thank you because even though you weren't sitting in the chairs that approved my employment, you represent those that did. And Richmond has been wonderful to me, and I probably haven't had a chance because I don't have 30 minutes to really tell you specifically all the wonderful things that are happening here. But know that you are leading a faculty and staff that they're like, and I call my Highland staff this, they're like wet sponges. If you sprinkle the little drops of ideas in front of them, they'll pick it up and go with it. They may grouse with it about it a little bit, and that's part of the problem. I think that change is challenging, but you can tell from my career that I welcome it, and I think most of our staff does. So I just say thank you. And I feel like you're on the right track, and if the preliminary results that I've observed and seen from test scores this year are any indication, I think the proof is there for you. So congratulations on what you're doing, and keep on doing it because it's important, and I'll be watching from a seat a few steps back.
Well, you'll be around still that we could use your knowledge if we need
Oh,
it.
well, yeah. I always willing
I think
to
we're going to
provide
see
my
you again. I
opinion.
just haven't.
So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Susan.
Thank you, Susan.
One comment.
Yes, go ahead.
I just wanted to make one, thank you, Susie, but I have to comment because I thought that it was really, that I was the reason that schools were closing, but now I know that it was really, you were the trailblazer. Because I've been in a lot of the schools that closed also.
Do we have anyone else signed up to speak?
No, we don't.
Okay, thank you. Now it's time for our public hearing, and I will open the public hearing.
Snapshots of success.
Oh, I'm sorry. Now it's time for snapshots of success. Tonight we have the Elizabeth Starr Academy and Craft a Commercial.
Would you like to talk about that?
Mrs. Quinn, our
sorry.
principal from the Elizabeth Starr Academy, is here to introduce some students as well as the contest that they have done so well with.
I brought back. I brought 3 of our 4 officers from our government. This is Samantha Rummelbass. She was our president this year. Amber Cooper and Marissa Newton. And I didn't say their labels because they kind of became interchangeable. One was the treasurer and one was the secretary, but they kind of worked together most of the time. So you were officially the treasurer, and Amber was officially the secretary, but I think most of the time they were together. And so they have helped lead Micro Society this year, along with our vice president, who is out of the city right now. So Mrs. Relly came to me and said, you know, there's these contests through Micro Society. I think we should start getting more involved with them. And I said, sure, you know, have at it. And she said, well, I want to do a commercial with the kids for Micro. And I said, okay, you know, that sounds great. And then she said, well, we don't have a cameraman. And I said, I know just the guy. And so I called up Mr. Quinn, and he came in, and they did the commercial. They created the commercial. They star in the commercial, which I'm going to show you. But it's supporting why more schools should be part of the Micro Society. And so I'm going to show you the commercial, and then they can answer questions for you. They really seem excited about that.
You know, it's kind of interesting that we're having this following Mrs. Hively's presentation. Mrs. Hively was the one responsible for bringing Micro Society to Richmond.
He was. So you get to see this.
And that's why I'm staying.
Okay. I have to back this up according to, oh wait, don't do that yet. Okay, you ready?
Wait a minute, let me get the lights on.
I get it.
Okay.
I was thinking Ben in that jacket. Too small. That's hilarious.
You got to watch it carefully because it goes by pretty quickly. You only had 30 seconds to do the commercial.
Wow.
So this is the Micro Society Craft a Commercial from Elizabeth Starr Academy.
No matter what you choose to become when you grow up, if you attend a Micro Society school, you'll already have the skills you need to make you succeed. Just saying. Elizabeth Starr Academy for young entrepreneurs means we better get every school in the United States to become a Micro Society school. We are ESA, a Micro Society school, and we think about it.
So not only did we create a cute commercial, but then we got this email shortly thereafter, after we had submitted it, that said, it was addressed to Megan because she had sent the email to the head of Micro Society asking if how the results had come out. And she said, Megan, I absolutely love the commercial that you sent our way. In fact, I'm thrilled to let you know that Elizabeth Starr won our spring competition. Shortly, you will receive an official congratulatory letter, a spot on our website, and a feature in our newsletter. Additionally, your video is proudly posted on our Micro Society Facebook page. I have enjoyed connecting with you, and I most certainly hope to keep in touch in the future. So that's from Robin Pancoast, and she's the communications director for Micro Society National. And so our girls, Samantha and Megan, Rob helped us create email addresses through the RCS for the girls so that they could communicate with Micro Society, so that it wasn't the adults who were doing it, but the children who were doing it. And so they were able to email back and forth with her and do some of the communicating. So not only did we create a really cute commercial and that we were really proud of, but we also won the entire competition nationally.
It's fantastic.
Congratulations.
Yes.
You guys have questions for the girls? I'm sure that they would love to answer them.
Well, who wrote your commercial? Did you all collaborate on that? And yes. And the costumes and
The costumes we got from the preschool room.
that explains a couple things. How long did it take you to put the whole thing together? Sounds like it was pretty fast.
Well, it was only 30 seconds, so it wasn't really that.
How many days did you guys work on it, though?
It took us a while to figure out what we were gonna do for it, like the script and all that, and so I don't know. It took us a while.
Well, we love our young entrepreneurs. Does anyone else have anything they'd like to say? Thank you so much for coming and showing us your commercial.
Thanks for letting us.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Congratulations.
And that was more exciting than our public hearing. The purpose of this hearing, I'm declaring the public hearing open. The purpose of this hearing is to offer the public an opportunity for comments and questions regarding the additional appropriations for the Rainy Day Fund. Mr. Coddington, Director of Business Affairs, will present this information. We invite questions at the conclusion of his presentation.
Thank you. As we talked about last week, we find ourselves needing to use our rainy day fund for additional appropriations to finish some projects that we've started. So we're asking for an appropriation of $2,495,000, $325,000 for the Hibbard parking lot, $650,000 for the Dennis gym, and $1,520,000 to complete the Crestdale project. We have these reserves. That's what we've been saving our money for. This will leave at the end of the year. We're projecting a rainy day balance with some transfers that we'll be doing later on this year of $3,700,000, or an 8% cash balance in our rainy day fund. Be glad to entertain any questions that you or the public might have.
Okay, we'll go ahead and make a motion. Do I hear a motion to accept the additional appropriations? Aaron Stevens makes the motion, and Jeff Slifer seconds the motion. Now, do we have any comments or questions concerning this from the public? Or all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And that action closes the public hearing. On to reports and discussion topics.
Our next item is the budget calendar. Mr. Coddington tries to bring to the board every year the budget calendar and explain what the board can look forward to as the budget is built and prepared for the following year. Mr. Coddington.
Thank you. The state has very strict deadlines, and so you start with the September 20th deadline that budgets must be approved and accepted, and we start backing up to today. So in front of you is a calendar to make sure that we meet every one of those deadlines, and we meet them without having an additional meeting outside of the regularly scheduled meetings. But as we always do during budget season, you will be seeing a lot of me for the next 3 months.
Okay. Do we need to, we don't need a
There's
motion on that?
There's no approval being
Okay.
sought.
Okay, then. Does anyone have any comments or questions for Mr. Coddington? Then we'll move on to the technology plan.
I'd like to call to this podium, Mr. Tidrow, who will present an overview of the plan. Again, there is not approval being sought tonight on this plan, but it's an opportunity for him to introduce the plan and to entertain questions or comments. Mr. Tidrow.
Okay. Thank you, Dr. Bohr, from the board. About a year ago, we sat down and put together a technology committee again to look at where we have been, where we are, and where we're going, and put together a short PowerPoint here that a quick overview of what is in the packet, which is a draft of our technology plan, or a strategic technology plan. I didn't want to go over all 43 pages tonight, but I'm sure that
Sorry.
I'm sure some of you have read it and so forth. I wanted to begin by talking about the technology committee, myself included, of course, and then we have one of the board members, Mr. Jeff Slifer, who has attended most of those meetings. Of course, we have Dr. Borf, Mark Millis, Stephanie Quinn is an administrator we just heard from, and then we had teachers on the committee, Scott Priest from the high school, Lyndon Dennis from the Dennis Middle School area. Then we had some elementary teachers that represented their area, Roya Mays, Kristen Phillips. From the technology department, we had Jim Magoski, which is our technology integration specialist, Russ Redmeyer, our network administrator. And then we had, of course, we always want to bring in the community involvement, and we had Mr. Ray Onco, Mr. Todd Duke. Ray is owner of the Docs Pop area downtown, very successful in that endeavor, and Todd Duke is the director of IT at IU East, which brings a couple perspectives. One is a community member and also one that is higher ed, and he can bring some viewpoints in that way as well. I've been asked, why haven't we put into place anything for this summer, any kind of big operations and so forth? But I think one thing you have to ask is, when is the best time to do something? And we discussed this a few months back in the cabinet, and we just didn't feel like this would be a good time this summer to make massive changes in our, one-to-one initiatives or whatever we want to do, just because of the master plan process that we're going through. We felt with 80% of maybe the teachers moving different schools or within a school, this wasn't the right time. But with that said, remind you and the audience about what the technology plans mean. One, our current technology plan is an online plan that the state DOE requires us to build and maintain. This is, I want to call it a compliance document. We put that in the January time frame. They approve it so we can get approval for the E-rate funding that we get from the federal government, the Universal Service Funds. It looks at the individual schools, it looks at the district as an overview, and it has a real brief budget information line. There's not much there in the way of strategy, future involvement. It's more of a historical document. So we felt, stepping back, maybe we should do more of a strategic technology plan that we could have as a tool to keep us going forward. One of the key elements that we discuss is connections, and I think it was a perfect segue with the young audience we had here with the Elizabeth Starr Academy. Those connections were from elementary kids with experts in their fields with the micro society, whether it was email or a video link. It provided some kind of connection between that student and maybe the outside world, and we want to promote that as much as possible. We also looked at 3 different ways that our technology can be looked at in our system: and infrastructure, operations, learning opportunities. Those are the 3 things we looked at. We also wanted to, in the plan, articulate how the technology improves the learning process. You need technology just to get some things done operationally as a business, but how does it really improve the learning process? Does a computer help? Does access to the internet help, or is it just a, if you will, babysitter? We also looked at ways that we can extend that anytime, anywhere learning concept and philosophy that we wanted to explore. 21st century skills is a key part of what our students are part of right now. We want to ensure that the technology infuses that throughout the curriculum and throughout the daily activities of students. And then finally, the technology plan provides a framework for those grant opportunities that come our way sometimes. So promote connections. I have a quote here from Alan November. Excuse me. He believes that the collaboration, which is a 21st century skill set, is the most important skill to learn. And we saw it earlier. We see it as we collaborate in adventures. And we see that at the high school when the students are taking on a project. We see it at the middle schools and so forth. But I want to touch on 3 parts of what connections mean in a student's life. There's social connections, there's intellectual connections, and there's physical connections. The social connections can be obvious. You interact with people online. You maybe interact with people in a different universe. But you can go outside of your local connections. You can go more to a regional connection. I can have friends outside of my neighborhood, but I can also have that global connection. It doesn't matter where that person is. I can have that connection with them with the use of technology in an appropriate way. The intellectual connections. There are times when possibly some of our students may not have an opportunity to expand their horizons, but with technology it takes them outside that 4 walls, it takes them outside of their environment, and maybe they connect with people in a different way in an academic or an educational environment. It also kind of forces them to do that in a lot of ways. Fiscal connections. I might be in a situation where maybe I'm in a poverty-stricken area. With the fiscal connections, I can see how possibly other people live. Maybe I can aspire to pull myself out of that situation. Maybe, on the other hand, I'm in a privileged area, and I can see maybe how the other half lives and help that situation and provide a connection that way. Some of the ways we provide connections now and building on our technology is the use of online resources, software, internet, cloud-based technology, and I put a few up here that we're using now. Brain Honey, which is part of our grad point software for credit recovery and credit accrual at the high school. eChalk will be coming out this fall with a pilot that we'll be doing at the high school. Of course, some of our social media sites that we take advantage of: Pinterest, Facebook, Twitter, SlideShare, Prezi, of course, YouTube. In fact, the video you saw just a few minutes ago was hosted on a YouTube site, and we were able to provide that through them. Microsoft Live at EDU is a education-based environment for students to have email, access to free resources, access for teachers to get resources from. Infrastructure. This is one of our three main areas that we wanted to focus on, where technology fits into education, and I think it's real important that we start off by saying the curriculum and the student needs drive the infrastructure. We can't say we're going to build a building and then have no purpose for the students and the curriculum. We feel that the curriculum is paramount, and so when we think of technology now, we have to think about how that can fit into what the students need. I didn't put it on a slide here, but page 23 of the plan, we list the basic requirements for all of our schools. And there we go through and we say, for elementary classroom, we expect this piece of technology to be in there. Maybe for a middle school, we expect this, or intermediate school, for high school. These are the expectations that we have, the teachers will have, but more importantly, what the students will expect when they go into those classrooms or when they go into a lab environment. It's key to have those expectations realized. And as we've seen this over the past 12, 16 months, that expectation changes when we get maybe a new funding source or a new opportunity to infuse a different technology. And with the smart boards, for example, those things have made a huge difference in our classrooms at the elementary level. And by the end of the summer, we'll have those in all of the K-6 classrooms and at the Hibbard building for the students and the teachers to enjoy. And we look forward to having that out there. Made a list here of some of the areas that the infrastructure touches in regards to technology. Of course, it touches people. We have policy and guidelines that the technology has to adhere to, learning resources, client hardware and software. So it's not just a matter of hardware. It's not just a matter of things you can touch. It's processes, it's procedures. Of course, we have our infrastructure in the way that people get on the networks and get onto the internet and so forth, kind of the backbone, if you will. But there's also, I'll put it in sustainable models for continuous improvement. That's part of our infrastructure that we have to focus on when we talk about our technology at RCS. Operations. This is a second key part that we wanted to key on in the technology committee. And this is the mechanism that provides that support and cohesion for RCS, for the faculty, for the staff, for the community. This is basically the business of doing business. You have to have that operations layer to get things done and make sure things are done correctly. Next slide here talks about how technology has to be is instrumental in providing a baseline, make sure that the components work, make sure that we support these endeavors, all the way from administration, human resources, the high ability areas, transportation, of course. We have layers of technology there. We have food services that relies on our technology. Information technology is an area that we have to support. Facilities and grounds, for example. The heating and security systems right on top of our network systems, and rely on those connections. The third component, and this is where it gets exciting for me, because this is where it touches on to the students as the learning opportunities area. And Will Richardson puts it this way: meaningful change will not happen for our kids if we're not willing to invest in it for ourselves first. At the heart, it's not about schools, it's about us. The way I interpret this is, what do we want to get out of that student involvement when they come to an education facility? What do they want? What do we want them to be as they come through our system? And it's not just a technology question, but it helps drive what we do here. With the advance in technology, we see changes in the way software, maybe some hardware is built, systems are built, and we no longer have to use the drill and kill mindset when a kid sits down to a computer. You don't get that sit and get as we did in the old days, where maybe it was more of a babysitter. Now it's a key component of our assessment process, of our learning processes. The tools are adaptive now. They're customizable. They're flexible. One important thing is they're student-centric. Not all students learn at the same level. They don't learn at the same speed. But the technology allows those students to do things in an individual approach, and the teachers to focus on that. Not only the technology changes, but there's other opportunities for us to improve that process with online courses, which we use right now with our GradPoint and NovaNet systems. We have virtual academies that we're looking at. And a concept that might be new to some is this open courseware, where this is, you see a lot of this in the higher ed area in the colleges, but MIT, for example, gives away a lot of their courseware online. Stanford, IU is getting into that, where they give you maybe some of their general studies content, including the books, and you also have opportunities to take free courses online as well through these areas. This is going to help our K-12 institutions as well. I also put down here some things that we use right now that provide that improvement in the process. Success Maker from Pearson, for example, we've used that for about 3 years now. We've seen great improvement. Apogea Math, that's a great tool for our students, especially at that middle school. SuccessNet is a new tool that we introduced this year for assessing the students, kind of just-in-time assessments. Renaissance Learning, we've used that for many years now. We have Math Facts in a Flash. Put Google there and Wolfram Alpha. These are search engines that help the students understand the world around them, get quick answers. The Wolfram Alpha is a tool, if you haven't used that, that actually allows you to input functions and formulas and to get results. Say in a math, you put a math problem in there and it will do it for you and kick it out for you. Moving forward, we've talked about this before. Last year we brought it, is a concept called Anytime, Anywhere Learning. This is where the four walls kind of disappear, whether it's in the classroom or outside the classroom. We want the students to have an access to their educational process anytime that they're ready to learn and need to learn. One way to do that is to look at a one-to-one initiative, and this is would be an initiative that we would have from maybe all grade levels, where every student would have some kind of device, a mobile device that they could leave in the classroom, maybe take home. But the first thing we're going to do is create a teacher task force that will then visit other schools, and what's important here is propose some best practices for all the grade levels. Tools at the 3rd grade may not be the same tools that we need at the 7th grade or the 9th grade. In some areas, in some grade levels, you can allow that device to go home in some of the grade levels, you may not want to have that. Maybe they would just have it as they come into the school, on the school grounds. We also will use the task force to investigate funding sources. We have our capital projects fund, of course, but we'll see if there's other funding sources out there that's available. Our goal is, again, we didn't want to introduce anything this year, of course, with the master plan process, but our plan our goal is to propose a plan to start that in the 2013-2014 time frame. Another way to expand that learning process is the concept of BYOD. This is a bring your own device. You've probably seen this, you've probably read about this, but this is where individuals can bring their own devices on the campus, bring your own device to work if you're a staff member. We've done some piloting at the high school with this, with mobile phones, small devices like an iPod Touch, and it's gone over very well over there. The teachers will allow it in the classroom if they want. If they don't want it in there, they ask the students to put them away. Of course, at test time, they're not allowed to use them. But this will provide many of the students access to those mobile devices that maybe we don't have the funds for right now. It allows them to use that tool in a meaningful way and learn how to do it in an appropriate way for education purposes and, more importantly, for maybe the work environment when they get older. It allows access to the online resources that we rely on, they rely on for classroom involvement. Another point is something we've talked about quite a bit in the Technology Committee is it shifts that cost to the user. If we have a 20% penetration with the students bringing in their own devices, maybe we just need to spend 80% of that to outfit the rest of the students. Maybe that number is higher. We've heard parents and so forth, why can't my kid bring his laptop on campus or bring maybe his iPad and so forth. So this can shift that cost. And then with that cost savings and allowing us to go more to one-to-one to provide that equitable use of the resources that we have and that we can provide to those other students that may not have those opportunities at home. Finally, we looked at ways that 24 skill set is infused, and another quote from Alan November is students who are taking notes using a podcast do better than those students that just take notes from a live lecture. And a podcast can be both an audio podcast, it's a recording maybe of a lecture, it can also be a video podcast where the student has an opportunity to listen to that podcast on his own terms, maybe on a ride up to a basketball game, maybe on at home. It's kind of on their own time. They can also rewind it, play it again over and over if they've missed a point. We know that if you go to a live lecture, things happen where maybe you're distracted, maybe you get a little bored with the conversation, and that happens in the classroom too, believe it or not. But I put down a few things here that the students are using now and that we encourage them to use. TED Talks is a worldwide system where it has leaders talking about different points in the world. Maybe it's about education, maybe it's about innovation. Khan Academy is a resource that has hundreds of short videos on how to do certain sets of problems. A lot of it's math, economics, there's some chemistry and so forth. Usually those lessons are 10 to 15 minutes in length. The last piece there is the iTunes symbol, and a lot of our resources are collected through iTunes using the podcast collector there. So I'd just like to conclude by letting you know that we welcome any kind of comments you might have or suggestions on the tech plan, and we'll take those back to the Technology Committee, and we have not had the meeting this month, of course, or next we'll have one in August when school starts back up again. One additional item that was not included in the tech plan that I wanted to point out, and Mr. Slifer has talked about this quite a bit, is we have talked about having an e-academy, which is professional development opportunities and training for the faculty and staff, and we want to make sure that gets put into the technology plan so we can have that scheduled. We can have the items that we want to make sure we cover. We also want to make sure that if there's any funding needs there, that we cover that as well in the tech plan. I will also be sending out through Dr. Borf a reminder and a link for you to join us on July 24th for the Allen November Technology Expo that we'll have at the high school. I just put that address up there for right now, but we'll get back with you on that. But we're excited about that next month. So if you have an opportunity to come to that, you can hear one of the well, some of you already seen him at your meetings, but one of the international known tech leaders out there for education. So that's all I have, and thank you. And I'll take questions or comments.
Thank you, Mr. Tidrow. Does anyone have any questions? Linda?
I am wondering about the plans for professional development. First of all, thank you and the committee for your work on the plan. I think it's a good start. But I did read the entire plan, and as I was reading, it seemed as though as I was writing down my questions, I didn't have any questions about what technology and software was going to be supplied. My questions always came back to, so what are the expectations for teachers, and what are the expectations, I guess, as far as students are concerned?
Right.
And so that is a real concern to me right now, because I didn't see a well-designed, well-planned professional development component. And I guess I want to ask, in the RISE model, is there a component that will focus on technology?
There is a software product that we have looked at. I've taken a look at it. We brought it here for administrators. Rob is familiar with it, and we'd like to move forward with it.
Let me reframe my question.
Okay.
Okay, because I am speaking of, is there a domain where teachers will be, where their evaluation will be based on technology that they utilize in their classroom? Do you know if that's part?
There are a couple of the components that deal with effective teaching and engaging classroom, but I don't believe there's a specific area that notes technology.
Okay.
But it's kind of blended into effective practices.
Okay. So how are you going to, I guess my concern is that how do we ensure that all of our students get to benefit from the wonderful technology? And obviously, we need to have our teachers to be on board and to know how to help the students. And so I guess that's a real concern for me, is to, so that they know and that it's well planned. And
But if what we've run into is some situations, and Mr. Millis is aware of this, and Mr. Slifer at our last meeting, was sometimes we get to a point where it kind of goes outside the technology committee, and maybe it goes into more of the curriculum or more of the not professional development, but more for what the administrators in the buildings are going to have to get involved with. But we will include anything we can to touch into that. And some of it is the school improvement plans that they update and use. So, but the PD is a part that we will build into this.
Everything that I've read, it talks about how important it is to integrate it into curriculum.
Right.
But how are teachers supposed to know how to do that? And you know, I'm thinking about resources also. Correct me if I'm wrong, but kind of modeling for teachers in their classrooms and kind of on-the-job training is also, it seems as though, a very important part of technology. So I guess I just want to ensure that this doesn't happen. If we're going to invest a lot of dollars into technology and software, we have to invest a lot of dollars in training our teachers, and so that it's not haphazardly done.
I agree.
And I think that we have to remember that we have Jim Magowski, who is our technology integration person. His job is to help us integrate the technology and the training in a job-embedded way. He'll also do sessions outside the school day, but his school day is pretty much dedicated to going out into the schools and working alongside the teachers and the principals on developing some skills. He also has to know what they need to know in order to build some of those training sessions, which gets at your question.
Well, I guess my question would be, is one person ample? I mean, that seems like a pretty big job for one person, because, you know, we have lots of teachers, so, and lots of classrooms.
Well, that's why the E-Academy,
well,
that's
I
huge.
just want to say, piggyback on what you're saying, and, you know, there's some conversation that's taken place that our media specialists in the buildings are in a position that I could see that position changing tremendously, because I do believe in order for the teachers to be educated and be able to embed it, we may have to start looking at how can we provide that resource at every building, period. So, which is something, and then, like Suzanne mentioned, the E-Academy, if we put out, and that was from a school board session 2 years ago.
Right.
One of the things that you talked about, expectations, is the way the E-Academy program was set up that I witnessed was it was staffed by 3 people, 2 or 3 people, and they were teachers. That was their job, and they set classes up, and the corporation set timelines with expectation that every staff member would complete certain processes. And we kind of laughed at the beginning of the sessions because the first one was how to use email. You know, and that's a way of life now, but there's people out there that may not even use email to its full. So what they did is they developed a system over a 2 or 3 year period that they went back to their staff and said, okay, it's our expectation that you take course 101, 102, 103, or whatever they were, and they defined those processes, and that became a requirement of the staff to complete as well.
Well, and then it can be done on their own time, too.
Right,
if you
exactly.
do that way, then it as...
And that E-Academy that was run by the school system, it ran year-round. I mean, it was and a lot of the staff did their work in the summer. But I think the key is the timeline. So we have a timeline to have this finished now by...
Are you talking about this plan?
Yeah.
Well, we would like to have the plan in place by the end of the summer, or by the time the budget is completed.
Right. So we got a timeline to have this finished in 3-4 months.
By September.
Less than that, 3 months.
Well, and I had a concern, too, about the students, because I think we all think that kids now are born with cell phones and the ability to text, but we do have kids in our classes that still have never had a cell phone, that still cannot keyboard adequately, and I'm talking about timed ECA tests. And we used to have keyboarding classes, and now we don't. So I'm concerned about the students and especially with our economic situation.
That's a big discussion now, going back and maybe introducing those keyboarding skills back at the, second or third grade level, since they will be doing online testing, so.
Well, so how do we know what our expectations are for our students? I mean, do we have something that standards or curriculum-wise that spells it out? I mean, if I'm a teacher, how am I going to know what my students should know or should be receiving as far as technology is concerned? Do we have expectations grade level wise, or are we going to be otherwise how do you know? How do you know what to teach?
You reference technology standards that are national standards,
right,
or suggestions.
Right.
Do we prep the principals in working with teachers on developing to those guidelines, or are those simply references in the plan?
They're references to the plan, in the plan, but we don't intentionally go out and talk to the principals. But it's something maybe we should or can do in the future.
It is a good question, because I think in the past what we've done, we have focused purely on the academic standards, and then to the level that we can afford the technology is the level that we integrate the technology. And what you're suggesting is maybe we ought to be looking at technology as a discrete area within the curriculum and see where the interface might be with academics.
Well, as I listened to Rob and as I read the plan, I mean, like he referenced what the expectations are as far as the software and the technology that will be included in each classroom. But what good is that if you don't know what you're supposed to be doing with it, and you don't have certain expectations that, in second grade, keyboarding will be introduced, or, I don't know.
So it really needs to come over to our curriculum director now to tell us how to interface the two.
I think that's what Rob was kind of saying.
Yeah, the state used to have grade level expectations, and this probably goes back to the late 90s. And then I think corporations sort of mirrored some of those and made them specific to their own needs. I think school corporations moved away from that as the technology changed so rapidly that those kind of became obsolete. But I do think your questions and comments about maybe some basic expectations that are spiral and skills and keyboarding is a very basic skill that they need to know, and to determine what those might be would be beneficial. But there has been some of that done, but the technology changed so rapidly that those kind of became obsolete, and then the focus became more on integrating the technology into learning, just to kind of give a perspective on, where we've gone with that.
Well, when all the testing is done online now and it is timed, and you have students who can't type fast enough to do a writing prompt or an essay in the time allotted, I think that's a real issue.
Suzanne?
Oh, I just think that there's some assumptions being made, perhaps, in that transition that you were talking about, that, kids get technology so much earlier and then missing out on some of those details.
I was just wondering, just out of curiosity, in elementary school, they're on the computer from kindergarten on, but do students know the keyboarding now? That
They don't.
So it's a hunt and peck?
They're not taught.
I know they're.
Yeah,
okay.
they're not taught.
They do well when you do it really quickly.
It's this way, Dale.
I know, but I was just trying to picture the students on the computer, and I
You
think
said with the writing prompt, that's
Yes,
concerning.
it's a problem.
Mm-hmm.
I guess one other we're not having, the technology committee meeting is not having a meeting in July, so we're basically August, September you're talking about. I guess I would encourage, this really was put together by, I mean, it's really been through the techies, let's just call them guys the techies. So can I maybe encourage, would it be too much for us to email a copy of this draft plan to RCS everyone and really, and put it on the webpage and really encourage some feedback? Because I really think, Rob's done a nice job putting us together to this point. Now we need to take it, okay, the teachers in the classroom.
It will be a part of the minutes of this meeting, which will go out to the entire staff. We could direct attention to it and then post that somewhere on the tech site, or I'm not sure what site it would fall into.
Or just email it to everybody, that way it's in their inbox, and if they don't want to read it, they have to delete it.
Maybe even with integration of technology in mind.
Help us.
Give us your thoughts.
I have one.
Okay.
As I was reading the plan, I didn't see also what kind of an evaluation, how do we know that what we're doing and the amount of money that we're spending is being used effectively? Do you have a plan for some sort of an evaluation tool?
Normally, the evaluation tool comes after the approval of whatever the initiative is. I mean, they still don't know exactly how far they're going to be able to go on this, but every initiative is followed up with some kind of an evaluation. It could be a survey or it could be an observation. We were just talking yesterday about the use of the smart boards 8 years ago. 8 years ago, we did some questions with teachers, and 8 years ago, they did not appreciate it was almost an obstacle to learning and teaching, the smart boards. And we discovered that there were certain features, the wires, the
carrying them in.
Yes, the carrying, the moving.
And if they moved it, yeah.
But today, if you were to ask them, because we've received a lot of feedback from teachers who are moving, they're telling us, make sure you move my smart board to my classroom.
Their smart board, right?
It would be a whole different story on the assessment, but we build the evaluation in as we build the technology component.
I just want to make sure that we include that somewhere.
I might also, I think I've talked to the board about this before. 8 years ago, when I came in as superintendent, there was soon a conversation on the next, it was almost a crisis at that point. How are we going to get our teachers fully trained to cut and paste? That was the issue then. In 8 years, think about where our staff has come, and it's almost something that we've taken for granted. I mean, they're using Facebook, they're using many of the features that Rob was talking about to bring instruction into the classroom, but they're using their grade books, their attendance features, we really have come a long distance, and it's almost been something that we haven't even noticed.
Thank you. Okay, we will move on to action items now.
I'm trying to get to it. Uniform Code of Student Conduct. Mrs. Hollis is ready to talk to you about the Code of Conduct, any particular changes we've had since our last conversation, and I'll let her make the recommendation.
Thank you, Dr. Worf. As we shared at the last meeting, every year we review our student code of conduct, talk to principals. Parents have had feedback and students have had feedback, and we bring to you any suggested changes that would be necessary. And one of those in the student code of conduct fell underneath cell phone usage. Originally it was no, you cannot use it, and we've moved that to the discretion of each principal because it's used in each building differently. Cannot still be used in the assessment phase, but cell phones are under the discretion of the principal. Student attire was what we talked about at our last meeting of the changes, the recommended changes there that really came from our student base at the high school. I've heard from 2 or 3 of you regarding for us to take back to the principals the area of the length of the skirts or shorts, and we did do that. The request of the principals, recommendation of the principals is just to leave what's been recommended to you in the Student Code of Conduct. So there are no changes except for a period here or there or capitalization in the code, but as far as the significant changes that were presented to you at the last meeting, there have been no changes. So I am recommending that the proposed Student Code of Conduct be approved as presented to you.
Do I hear a motion? Dixie Robinson makes the motion. Do I hear a second? Jeff Slifer seconds the motion. Are there comments and questions on this?
I say bravo to the students. I've had several conversations, and I know I said this before, about the dress code. We knew we needed to do something. We did it. It didn't work like we thought it would. Students made suggestions. We responded, and I think that's wonderful. And now we will be expecting the students to respond to that. So I think it's great.
All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion is carried.
Thank you.
Next action item is one falls under our human resources area. This is consideration of recommendation to cancel an employment contract. A recommendation has been brought to you to do so. It requires a board motion and second and eventually a vote in order to do that. Mr. Cross, any statement on that before action is taken?
Prefatory to the board taking action, I guess it might be beneficial to explain the process that has transpired. Under the current statutes, the process to recommend a teacher's dismissal must begin with the building principal. In this case, it did. The affected teacher then had the right to request a conference with the superintendent. She did. That conference took place, whereupon the superintendent then has to review the information that's been presented to him and determine whether he is recommending to the board the affirmation of the principal's recommendation or not. In this instance, Superintendent Borf does recommend that the teacher's contract be terminated for the reasons stated. Upon being advised of that fact, the teacher then had the right to request and did request a conference/hearing before the Board of School Trustees. As all of you know, that transpired this past June 7th, which would have been last Thursday, I believe. And that was a private conference as the statute dictates. I have, and we've had deliberations on the board's deliberations, at least, were conducted Monday evening. Based upon the fact that the administration has the burden of proof in these proceedings, you have in front of you only proposed findings, conclusions, and a determination that would be presented to you by and on behalf of the administration that I have prepared based upon the presentations at the conference hearing. It would be proper then to get this before the board for a vote. In order for the administrative recommendation to occur, it must be supported by the affirmative vote of at least 4 board members. So if they're failing that level of support, then the recommendation fails, and the teacher will be afforded a regular teacher's contract for the 2012-2013 school year. Any questions?
Thank you, Mr. Cross. As chair, I move that the employment contract of camera guard with Richmond Community Schools be terminated immediately based upon the attached statement of proceedings, findings of fact, conclusions of law, and final determination. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Suzanne Darengowski seconds the motion. Comments or questions? Linda?
Before casting my vote, I want to assure everyone that the outcome of this vote will produce no winners. Having spent 39 years in the classroom, I'm fully aware of the responsibilities in the educational environment that must exist in order to ensure academic success for each and every student. But the educational picture is not complete without the unwavering support and quality leadership of administrators. For in a supportive, collaborative environment, everyone flourishes. Thank you.
This was a difficult decision for all of us. It's an awkward position to be in. So by a show of hands, would all of those in favor please signify by saying aye?
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Do you want me to?
Would you please poll the board, but I think I
Okay.
saw the result of...
Suzanne?
Aye.
Dixie?
Nay.
Jack?
Aye.
Nay.
Aye.
3-3 vote, the action and the administrative recommendation fails.
Okay, we are on to our master plan and the rainy day fund additional appropriations resolution.
And this could have followed the other piece that we had earlier in the meeting on the public hearing on the rainy day fund additional appropriation. I'm not sure if that was confusion or not, but this is the actual resolution. Mr. Coddington.
Thank you. Whereas it has been determined that it is now necessary to appropriate more money than was originally appropriated in the annual budget, now therefore, be it resolved that the School Board of Trustees of Richmond Community Schools, Wayne County, that the expenses for the taxing unit of the following additional sums of money are hereby appropriated out of the fund named and for the purposes specified, subject to the laws governing the same. The rainy day fund for the amount of $2,495,000.
Do I hear a motion? Jeff Slifer makes the motion and Aaron Stevens seconds the motion. Comments or questions? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Thank you.
Dennis, cafeteria bids.
We have a presentation of the bids and a recommendation. I'm not sure if Mr. Coddington is presenting that.
Mr. Mays is going to start, and when he's complete, I will ask for a recommendation.
Thank you, Dr. Worf. What I would like to do would to review the projects and bring you up to date. And then the last project I'm going to talk about is Dennis, and then we can go from there. What the picture that we have up there right now on the board is standing at Crestdale, standing in the library, looking east, and you would be looking. This is the office area, or was the office area, just to show you what kind of demolition that we are doing there. Then this is a typical classroom that we've demoed out, lockers, casework. They haven't taken the ceilings out yet, carpet's gone, chalkboards are down. So that's the extent of renovation and demolition that we're doing. Now, to bring you up to date, the east wing is what we started on first, and all of the new windows have been installed. We're now drywall's installed, and we're starting to finish it. We have cork on the walls in the corridor, and that next Monday we'll start painting that area, just to show you how well it's progressing. On the new addition, we're going to pour the concrete slab on Friday, and structural steel will be on the job Monday or Tuesday to start the erection there. On phase 2, which is still talking about the remaining part of the existing building that we're working in, 50% is demoed. We have the hot water piping, which is the heating piping. 75% is that is demoed. 90% of the walls and roof insulation. We're coming back because when this building was built, you didn't have to worry about heat loss, and there was no insulation on the roof or the outside walls, and we're re-insulating all of that, and that's 90% complete. And then we have to cut new doorways in existing masonry walls, and that's 30% complete. The thing that is great to report tonight is that typically in a construction project and a renovation, when you start tearing the walls out, in some cases you don't know what you're going to run into, and there's sometimes hidden items that you didn't count on. There were no surprises during this demolition. Everything was what was on the existing drawings, and so that we don't have to come back and say, we did an extra for this or an extra for that because we didn't know the water lines were in a wall or structural steel. We've taken care of that, so we don't have any surprises. Phase 1, which is the area they're starting to paint now, could be completed on July the 27th. We anticipate maybe a week or so before that, but they are allowing themselves some extra time. Phase 2, which is the remaining part of the existing building, will be completed on August the 2nd. And then the new addition, which we're really pleased with, will be completed by September the 17th, where we were figuring that wouldn't be completed until October or November, but they have two crews working, one separate crew working on the addition and one separate crew of men working on the remodel. So that we're very pleased. We have a tight timeline schedule, and they're right on the schedule. So we're pleased to announce that. On Hibbard, one other thing I forgot. On Crestdale, when we started taking some of the walls down, we took a piece of plywood off the corridor, and we found a series of names that dated in 1992, and Bridget's grandmother's name's on there because she was a teacher at the school. And so she's going to post those on our website and ask, where are you today? So that, and the names are fairly clear, and we've taken pictures of it, as you can see, to so we can document what's there, and they won't be lost. Going to Hibbard, we're going to have a city inspection, occupancy inspection on Hibbard on June the 27th to occupy the building, and that all rooms, all areas of the building then on July the 2nd would be open and available to any staff that wanted to come in and get their room arranged and ready for start of school in August. The second floor right now is all the classrooms are complete. The only thing is that the corridor flooring is not complete because we wanted to hold off on that until we got everybody moved in. Everybody's moved in the classrooms. It's in boxes and tables and chairs. They haven't distributed them yet because they're not, the teachers aren't allowed to be in the building because we don't have an occupancy permit. But everything is in the classrooms. We're going to start painting the lockers in the corridor tomorrow. The first floor, the painting is 90% complete. The ceilings are 90% complete. Casework is 100% complete. Carpet is complete. Again, we haven't done anything with the floor covering until we get moved in the life skill area and the offices. And if you would see the gym or the cafeteria area, that's full of everybody's equipment that will go into those rooms then. So we're really pleased. We did make the June 8th date, which Bob needed to start moving everything then on the following Monday, and so that we're in good shape time-wise. On the site plan, I know we've all been disappointed when we reevaluated the timing of this. And the problem that we ran into to try to do the site work this year, as you can see, this entrance here, this entrance, and this entrance, and even the back, every entrance would be closed or jeopardized for student able to go in the building and adults, because all those areas would be under construction, and that the type of construction that we're doing in this area right here, there's a lot of dirt that we have to move there, and we have to redo this parking lot, and this is where the buses will come in, and they'll stack up right here, and they'll let the students off this entrance, and then they'll come out and pull out this way. We've talked to the bus garage, and they like this approach, and that they've all agreed to it, and then this would be the life skill area for their staff and members to park. Then we have this parking lot up here. Okay, this parking lot has little or no dirt that we have to move. The other parking lots, and putting them in, and all the concrete work, we would not be able to put the asphalt down until November. And you do not get good tight asphalt drives and streets in November, and you're still subject to the weather. So we felt that we would be better off holding off of that right now. We talked to the bus garage, and they felt that they could have all the buses unload and load to the north of the building. Since we do not have C.R. Richardson open, that was a conflict when Test was there, but because of the buses unloading also on that same street for CR, but now they feel that this can work real well. So then what we decided, since this parking lot here, which there's about 35 parking spaces there, and we desperately need parking, even with this parking lot not working that, we desperately need staff parking and guest parking. We talked to Milestone Contracting, and we talked to Powell Paving, and Powell Paving is the one that's starting the Star parking lot this week, and asked them how much time it would take them to complete that parking lot. So we talked to them about the design and what we were doing there, and they both said that they could pretty much guarantee the third week of August of getting the blacktop in, this sidewalk right here to get to this floor level, and getting this cut into here. Now, the reason why this looks wavy like this, it's not trying to be fancy. If you drive out there, the elevation of this street here is lower than this area here. And if you would come straight out, it would make it too steep and hazardous in the wintertime. So that's why we've meandered this drive right in here, so it would be a safe elevation. But when we talked about this, they said that if we had perfect weather, which means no rain, and we haven't had any rain all summer, they felt that they could complete that by August the 10th. Now here's what the schedule is. We would have drawings completed and ready for bidding on June the 25th. We would receive the bids on July the 10th. We would ask for board approval at the regularly scheduled board meeting on July the 11th, and then the successful contractor would start the next day. And they felt with that schedule, we could have that done right there by August the 10th.
That's good news.
Would it be striped?
And that gives us 35 parking spaces.
That's good news.
I'm sorry?
Would it be striped by that?
Yes.
That's great.
Be striped and ready.
Would the city, could we get permission from the city to close J Street during bus times? Would they do that, something like that?
I don't know. Ask our expert there.
I mean, the biggest concern that we've all had is with L Street and 9th Street or 27, such high traffic that we all agreed that the small parking lot that we had in the front just wasn't going to work. So the one in the back relieves some of that stress, but it would still be nice if the city would give us permission to close J Street just to the buses. So I don't know if that's something that we could.
In this world, anything's possible, but I really, those exceptions 5 days a week for a period of an hour and a half in the morning, an hour and a half in the afternoon, I really do believe that would be virtually impossible to have to make some type of I see that as virtually impossible. Plus, then you would have to consider the livelihood of the residents who live there, who utilize J Street, especially at that time, who would have to reroute their going to or coming home from work. Also,
Well, the good thing about it is even though the campus covers a 4-block area, there's still individual
The
blocks
ways in
going
and out, yeah.
to the, well, it's just a thought, but I'm glad, I'm
One business
glad
along
about
there,
the
but
parking
there
lot in the
would-
back.
I would actually believe that the best thing that could be done, you know, like I said, I think it would be virtually impossible and improbable to do that. But with the public awareness of that, a bus route is going to be, you know, utilizing South J Street in the morning and in the afternoon will probably be one of the biggest
Deterrents?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Or we could just put temporary construction closed like we're
Pylons,
city
yeah.
construction or something.
Or we could just annex the.
But I feel,
Communicating that to the neighbors might be all it
and
takes.
talking with the bus garage, that they felt that that would be still a good, safe spot to
Better than
drop
L.
off
Yeah,
there.
a lot
By a
better than L
bunch.
Street.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I feel more comfortable.
So
with
that,
that.
that hill there, you know, where it goes up,
Mhm.
you said something about that you would take care of that drainage
Yes,
issue that
right-
went into the wall.
Right now, this all drains towards the building.
Right.
And so what we'll do is rework this dirt to come around and drain, and we'll have a couple catch basins down here as part of the parking lot of the overall project next summer, and we'll take care of that water going towards the building.
That's great.
Okay, good.
That's the number one priority on our drawings.
That's great.
Okay, right.
Okay, the other thing that would like to show you is that we're working on the Ron Robinson Memorial Plaza. Now, this right here is the front entrance as it is today, right here. And this faces south and faces L Street. What we would like to do would be to put brick pavers in this area right here with benches, similar to the benches at Test, because they've held up real well, and that, except ours would be red. We would have paving brick along here and come up at an angle. Reason why we like the angle is because this is a drop-off point, and this is where a lot of the students will be headed right towards the building, and then we'll have visitor parking, and they'll be coming up this way and heading towards the building. And this is actually a walk that we'll be putting in to bring us from the parking lot. Hopefully when we get the parking lot done, a lot of the traffic would come in this way, and because the second floor doors would be locked, and this would be the entrance for visitors. And we would put the flagpole right here in the middle. Now, what our thinking is not start this until the parking lot is complete, so that then when we start this area here, it will affect this entrance. And so that we will then complete this, and this entrance might be closed off for a month, and that we would start the plaza. The elevation of the plaza is that we're putting a metal roof, and it would be red in color, and that we would have the name Hibbard right across the front here in big white letters, and we would be putting in new brick columns. And right now, under our present contract, these windows and these set of doors are already in the contract, and that'll be done right away. Then this is the walk, and we have to have this retaining wall, which is similar to the one there, because we're taking this dirt out along here. And then we were looking at a plaque that we would put right here. If you look at the plaque that we have for Dick Tiernan in Tiernan Center with the bust on it, that's what we were looking at for right there with B. Ron Robinson's Memorial Plaza.
Question.
The artwork that we can look at after the meeting, so you can see up close, is right over here.
Are these?
Yes.
Question, what type of lighting is going to be there at that plaza as well as along that walkway?
We're starting to work on that now. We'll definitely have recessed lighting in this brick area that will shine up on the flagpole so that that's lit all the time. And then we're going to put probably some ballard type of lighting in here or some type of decorative pole lights.
Will those also extend up the walkway leading to the parking lot?
That's
all right.
Right. Well, the problem with Hibbard is there's not an entrance on the building that says, I'm the front door, I'm the front entrance, I'm the main entrance. They all look the same. So that's why we were coming in with this entrance right here. And again, because it's a program building, we don't have purple, we don't have green, and we don't have blue, which was all the colors in the past. Right. That's why we've introduced red. We are Richmond. Yep. And then right along here, what we're looking at doing is putting the names of the programs, like logos, life skill, early college, putting that on the wall so when people walk up, they can see what it looks like. The other thing that's really, really great is that along with collecting some contributions, we have contractors coming to us and say, how can we help? So we're already looking at masonry contractors, concrete, excavating, lighting, electrical. Somebody wants to donate the masonry material.
That's fantastic.
Somebody wants to donate all the masonry, which would be the this brick area inset, these walls, the decorative pilasters, and the columns. And so they're just waiting to do this. The only thing we feel at this point we would be bidding would be this structure right here. We would bid the 4 steel columns that would go in here and this steel structure, but all the masonry, everything else we're looking at being donated.
Which was, that portion was originally planned anyway.
That's right. You're absolutely right.
So we're not doing.
That's terrific.
Okay. At Test, the renovation of the life skill areas at Test, they started Monday, started removing all the plumbing fixtures, and we're starting to tear the walls down, and that's going to be completed by July the 20th. The Baxter renovation, we're actually meeting there tomorrow morning with John Hamilton and Glenn Slifer to start costing that out. And that will be, that's going to start June the 25th and be completed by August the 3rd. Now at Dennis, what I'd like to talk to you about at Dennis is the cafeteria area, so you can see the cost impact of the cafeteria. One of the things which the cafeteria is this area right in here. This is new construction, so we're only talking this area right here. Where we're putting the kitchen, what people don't realize is that from this floor level of the cafeteria now to the outside, there's a 2-foot drop. There's a storage room right here, which is half of this kitchen area, that is 2 foot lower. So we're taking that slab out that's 2 foot lower, busting it up so it'll drain properly. We're filling that with fill, and so that area will be the same height. We're putting all the kitchen equipment in here, and at this point will be 2 serving lines, so that the students can come along here and pick up their food, come along here and pick up their food, and then the 2 cash registers computers will be right there. So we have to tear those walls out in order to get these 8-foot long counters for passing out the food. Then we're working in this area right here is that we're relocating these doors and making them much wider. There'll be an 8-foot opening in each one of them with hole opens, so we have a lot of free movement in this area right here. The ceiling in here, because of acoustics, we want to put in a lay-in ceiling, and for right now, we're going to leave the ceiling out where this air handling unit is and some of this pipe work, and we're going to put the ductwork in here now, but when we put the gym on, then the heating unit for this area will come from the gym construction. We are in this project, though, most every kitchen in the system, if you walk around and see Maggie's kitchens, they have fans running because it's so hot. What we've done here, we're putting a rooftop unit right here that's dedicated to the heating and cooling of this space only, and that it will also interact with the exhaust fan system that we're putting in over the heating oven. The wood floor in here, we have scheduled to be finished, come in and sand it on the last day of July, and they'll take all the lines off of the floor, and that then it'll be a surface then for the cafeteria, and we're putting a special seal coat on it that they use in cafeterias that have a wood floor. In talking with the kitchen staff, all the years that they've used that and the spills on the floor and cleaning it, they've never had any problems whatsoever. Some people say we're putting a wood floor in the cafeteria in a intermediate school, and yes, we are. And that floor will hold up and be as good as any floor we could put in there. Then what we want to do is this hallway, we're changing the lighting and the floor in this hallway. Then on phase 2, when we do the gym, we want to make a square right here in the ceiling. We want to put special lighting, and we want to put a dentist emblem right here in the floor, in our floor material, and then we'll renovate this floor and stop right here for the main hallway. So that I think this whole area with the new gym, the new cafeteria is going to lift the spirits of everybody in that school and give it a shot in the arm, which, as you all know, really needs it. Facility-wise, needs it.
Well, and you're coming through one of the main entryways off of the parking lot.
That's right. It is, because there's basically no parking at all on the street there. So a lot of people do that, and they can come in this entrance now.
Well, and you're creating a community center in a lot of ways too, because of the gym and the multi-purpose room. So that'll be great. Yeah, that'll be great.
That's right. I think we're going to see a lot of community use
I think so too.
out of this facility. The cafeteria, if you approve the contracts tonight, we have a meeting there tomorrow at 1 o'clock. We're going to start construction Friday morning, and that they'll be completed with the cafeteria by August the 3rd. Okay, thank you.
Now, with that, we are asking, or we're taking the dentist bid. We know that we have $1.2 million appropriated for the dentist building. We're asking that we approve the bids that we accepted at the dentist project. We sent notice to bidders, proof of publication, and therefore we ask that the building project bid be awarded to Thor Construction for the lowest, most responsive bid of $255,276 as presented for the cafeteria.
Do I have a motion?
I so move.
Jeff Slifer makes the motion, and Suzanne Darengowski seconds the motion. Are there comments and questions?
The only comment that I want to make is low bid was $255,276, and two other bids, you got what, less than $2,000 separating three bids. So.
And this is local.
It's a
too.
Richmond
Yes.
local contract.
Yeah.
Local, we're pleased to say that it's local, and we'll have subcontractors that are local.
Suzanne?
I do have a question about, because the timeline, I mean, these timelines boggle my mind. Do we have protections? Because if this isn't finished by the time school starts, that's a real problem.
I guarantee you it'll be finished.
Okay.
We have weekly meetings.
We
And we
meet
have weekly
weekly
schedules.
schedules, and we ramp it up, we take it down, we're right on, we have a Gantt chart of where we are.
I knew that would be the answer. I just want to make.
Well, just to give you an example, at Crestdale, we had 2 crews working all Saturday, and we had 1 crew working Sunday.
That's great.
To keep up with the schedule. I think the other thing is, and Bob pointed out, again, everybody is local. And even though that it's Stamper who is doing the Crestdale job, some of his subs are different.
Yes.
And so that we still have, everybody is local on this job.
That's great.
All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion's carried.
I have one other thing that I'd like to discuss very briefly on the master plan. The moves are 99% done, and they'll be completed by Friday. Now, next Wednesday, if any board members at 11:30 could come to test
Lunch?
cafeteria.
Oh.
We are having a recognition lunch for our environmental services people and our maintenance people. It is incredible. I walked the building today with the principal, and remember, the coordination of this, and she had a master plan that said room 2 is a first grade class. The teacher's Mrs. Smith coming from CR, and we said, now let's go room by room.
Check it.
We walk into room 2, and there's boxes from CR from Mrs. Smith sitting there with 22 desks, 22 chairs. I've asked every principal to do that. I talked with every principal. I walk part of the buildings with them and say, let me know by Friday, because we're pulling the people off the job. You're leaving on Monday. We think we're ready for school, because what's going to happen starting next Thursday after we get some things is we're going to have 2 custodians in every building, and everything that they put in that room starting Thursday on one half of the hallway, it's all coming out, and we're going to deep clean the rooms. We have one time to make a great first impression is what I've impacted with everyone. And my friends, we're going to do that August 13th.
So what day
Say
did
that
you
again?
say? Wednesday,
The 20th?
the 20th?
Wednesday, the 20th, yes.
What time
Time
again?
and where?
11:30 to 1 at Test. And they have done just an incredible job. And the building I walked through today, room by room, there wasn't a mistake. I mean, there wasn't, oh my goodness, this should be here, it should be here. The attention to detail from the principals to the teachers to the environmental services and maintenance. It's just remarkable. Now, we did have some walking wounded.
Oh, no.
They worked so hard that we had 3 or 4 minor scrapes and injuries the first
imagine.
week because, and I've had every principal say, Bob, they moved my stuff to my car for me. So the customer service piece of these environment cannot be under.
I know one building
appreciated.
had some retired teachers come back and help the teachers move, push the carts around and stuff.
That's awesome.
Well, today I saw the crew working at the state hospital school there, what was formerly. Yesterday it was at Baxter, and then just I've seen. Now I know where those Keebler cookies come from.
That's awesome.
Thank
Well,
you very
couldn't
much.
drive
and we
down a
will.
street without seeing a Richmond truck going
Right.
someplace.
Going someplace.
This past
And
week.
they're not letting the grass grow. While they're waiting on a truck to come, they're moving classrooms.
And Bob, I have to say this too, because we'll maybe get a chance to say that next week if I'm able to get there, but their professionalism while they're doing it, their looks, their demeanor, everything else, I mean, it represents everything that we want to be. And I mean, from the person who is the environmental service person all the way up to the administration and every teacher in between. You know, this is a team effort.
And to understand, this is a plan that Ron Robinson put together. And the gift we're giving is John Hamilton and Glenn Slifer are making sure that they carry this thing out with impeccable. So don't forget them.
Absolutely.
Their leadership, I'm just overwhelmed by the job that they're doing. Thank you.
Timelines were so easy.
Next item is the Cabin and Caboose Committee, and I'm recommending that the board appoint Bob Coddington as the chair of this committee, but essentially that we have the committee. We have some people who have already volunteered for that. One of the questions was, I think Mrs. Morgeson asked exactly where the recommendation would go from this committee. Would it go to yet another committee, or my recommendation is that whatever the committee decides and to recommend comes directly to the board. We have some very committed people to this. They're passionately committed to the well-being of these historical artifacts, and I think future generations of Richmond children will be the beneficiaries of this good decision. So let's expedite that and cut out the middleman, which would be the superintendent in this case. I think it ought to come directly to the board. So we do have, I'm recommending with the formation of this committee that we have some open spots, but I would also like to say that what I recommend is that Bob Coddington be the chair, Linda Morgeson, Aaron Stevens be board members selected for that, Shannon Vatter as an RCS parent, Tina Mayer as an RCS parent. I also would suggest Rod Weiss as a citizen member, and there are some other open spots. But the purpose of the committee is actually to research and recommend based on cost. Cost would have to be a factor to be considered. Location of these two items, wherever that would be. Management, who manages, those are concerns, whether that would be RCS or another entity. Logistics, if they're going to be moved, this committee had better be researching how that move is to take place. And then I would suggest that we put at a very high level of consideration the availability for use by the Richmond Community Schools students. Whatever is done with them, they were given to the school corporation to make sure that Richmond Community School children continue to use those. It would be my hope that the very, very high priority would be placed on making sure that our students continue to have access to them. But with that, I would recommend the timeline be that the committee is formally composed by the end of this month. Research is done during July and August, and a report to the board would be, along with a recommendation, sometime in September.
And did you want to have any kind of action on this? Or?
I would like for you to adopt my recommendation to move forward with this at tonight's meeting, and let's put it in
Jeff
motion.
Slifer makes the motion, and Suzanne Darengowski seconds the motion. Does anyone have any comments or questions?
I was just wondering, you said there's some open positions
Yes.
left, and so who do they contact for those open positions?
That's a good question. We've talked about having an open spot on our website, and we can do that. We can put out there the Cabin and Caboose Committee. If you are interested, please let us know this way.
Looks like you have one for a citizen and a student. You also have former teachers. Would you put all of those on the website, or just for the citizen and the student?
We can advertise those spots.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Could, since we don't know where these are going to end up, I mean, the proposal could come back to be on a school building lot or something like that. I mean, could we, since Ron's involved in the building, would it be wise to have him part of the process as well?
Well, Bob.
Bob will be there.
You can always ask for input from anyone you would want.
Suzanne, did you have a question?
If lighting is an issue, I'm assuming they will have a lighting person brought in.
Yeah, my question was just the sort of security of those items between now and September, since those buildings will be abandoned. I guess I have a little bit of a concern about what will we do about that between now and then.
Well, between now and then, we are continuing to maintain and make sure that there's surveillance out there. I mean,
Yeah.
we're watching the buildings as well.
Right.
And there's a lot of activity in the buildings, and will be through the end
Yeah, I
of the
figured
summer.
that. I just, at some point, I figured they kind of would be emptied out, and I was a little concerned about that. Like you said, summer, usually there's some activity, but, so, that's good. Good to know.
Okay, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? We have our committee.
And the frequently asked questions, I'm not so sure that we have frequently asked questions at this point.
The new ones.
There
I
have
had a
not been those in the...
question, and you may not be ready to talk about it yet, so if not, then just shut me up. You had said in an email to us earlier that you're looking at a new tier of routes to separate the 5th and 6th graders from the 7th and 8th graders.
Well, as a matter of fact, we can address that as of
That's been a
today.
big concern of parents, so I think that would...
I talked with the bus garage, and they put the preliminaries, and we will have a 4-tier system on 2 times. 5th and 6th grade will have their own buses. 7th and 8th will have their own buses.
And so they won't all be arriving at the same time, or?
Very similar times. Yeah, we're going to have the same, we're not going to have staggered start
Okay.
times. It worked out that we have 20 buses doing the intermediate routes, and it worked out that 10 of them can pick up the 5th and 6th, and 10 of them can pick up the 7th
I
and
think
8th.
that'll ease a lot of parents' minds. And then,
Yeah.
secondly, I had a question from a parent at Test who talks about how congested it is around Test now, and it always has been. That's just the way it is when school gets out. But now with 4 grades and more parents, is there anything in place to maybe help with that congestion, or?
Well, we have more buses to...
Well, that's good, yes.
I mean, with those students, we also have more transportation available. But I think that we're going to see more traffic around all of our buildings. And, I mean, that's unavoidable.
Something we'll just have to work with as we go along.
We will. We're going to have to ask for patience, especially as we do every year in the first couple of weeks, while we get some procedures and
Okay.
patterns established. But I think the observation is entirely correct. There will be more traffic.
Okay, thank you.
A
Suzanne?
question about the 2 tiers for the intermediate schools. Does that add any cost for transportation or extended travel time?
No.
Okay.
That was what we've been researching. We could always have done it. We just
Yeah,
wanted to
I
make
just
sure we
want-
weren't adding buses,
Okay.
time.
Well, thank you for doing that. That's great.
Well, again, let's give Darlene Morrison the credit. When I went and said, we're going to hire 20 bus aides starting at the school, we need to get going, she says, wouldn't it be easier to have 4 routes than personnel because the buses are that? And I go, that's why we have you, Darlene, to help us think.
Well, thank you, Darlene. Now is our work session.
And we call Mrs. Hollis back to the podium for the Safe Schools Healthy Students Grant.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Thank you, Mr. Stevens.
Welcome.
A couple of things I want to touch base on before I give the presentation is, as we go through the presentation, you will see some slides that are new and some that were taken out, and a part of that was we had new data that we could share with you. I think that was a little bit more pertinent to what you were wanting to hear probably, and just time. I didn't want to make this a 30-minute presentation, just me talking, so we wanted to make sure I saved time for you. Before I get started, I really want to kind of revisit history here. Dr. Borf participated in an organization called the Countywide Partnership for Youth. Actually, it just wasn't Dr. Borf. Dr. Kathy Parker was a part of that too. And at the time I had a different hat, and I was a part of that as well. But the Countywide Partnership for Youth is a coalition of organizations that serve our youth, or retired individuals or retired educators that support our youth, and we, through that coalition, actually created a youth development plan. And it was through this partnership for youth that the opportunity for the Safe Schools Healthy Students grant came about. And it originally was applied for all of our county schools under the CPY umbrella, and we didn't receive it. And that was, I think, we applied for that in 2006, and that was 2007. After the Countywide Partnership for Youth sat down and looked at the data again and feedback from the federal government on the application, it was decided that Richmond Community Schools could be the lead education agent on that and apply for the application. And it was encouraged by the Countywide Partnership for Youth to do that. And it was done, and in 2008, July 2008, the announcement came to Richmond Community Schools and to the Countywide Partnership for Youth that they've received the grant. All along throughout the entire grant, the Countywide Partnership for Youth has still been very, very integral to the grant, because we can't do this grant, we couldn't provide the services without the Countywide Partnership for Youth still being there and a part of it. So that will make sense as I get to the end. I just want to make sure as we go through this that you understand there's more than just Richmond Community Schools a part of this. There's a bigger picture. It's called a Youth Development Plan, and this was a small piece of accomplishing that Youth Development Plan. So with that in mind, you saw it in the paper, thanks to Mr. Zimmerman, Z-Man. We wanted to let you know that we did receive an extension approval. Now, what does that mean? We received notification of the grant July 2008. I did not start until October, end of October 2008. And in January of 2009 is when we actually began those services. So we had about a 6-month lag of services that were not rendered to our students and to our families out of the grant. With the grant technically ending June 30 this month, we had an opportunity to go back to the federal government and build our case and say, look, we still have dollars we did not expend, and we really would like to continue our efforts and extend those services till, originally it was December 13 for the entire grant, but what we have is a little bit more of that. The extension is actually going to get us through, and we'll talk about this in a bit, the services, most services will be finished December 2012, and then we'll have some that kind of tear off, but technically we'll get to May of 2013 with the extension. And the partners are very excited, teachers are excited, principals are excited, we're all excited about that. Just want to remind you about the focus areas for the grant. It was to improve and increase our services to at-risk children and their families, to link services to our students in a consistent and complementary manner to our goals of Richmond Community Schools, to decrease violence and substance abuse exposure to our students, and to increase the healthy development of all of our children in Richmond Community Schools. This is something that was added, a slide that was added, and it was important to for me to remind you what we consider a big measurement of our success. We collect a lot of data through this grant. We have our full-time evaluator that helps us look at what's working, what we need to improve on. But the three main things that were critical to you as a board were improvement of ISTEP scores, improvement with attendance rate, and improved behavior of our students. Those are the three markers that when the grant opportunity was presented to you was said this was critical, and we know that this grant will make that difference. So what does this transition process look like, and how will it look in our upcoming months? Transition of services through December 2012 is that list. These are our current list of services that we currently have full-time. A lot of these services were in existence already. The grant just allowed us to expand those services and to ramp up those services. I can clearly and excitedly stand before you and say that we are the only school system in Wayne County that provides the support services to our students that we do. You have taken on this concept that we can't do it alone as educators. We have to have our community to buy into this. And we need to open our doors to the community and let the community be a part of this education process. And if you look at that list, that's just a small piece. What you will hear through the annual report, June 26th, is there's over 100 partners that are engaged in our kids' lives every day, whether it's through tutoring, mentoring, businesses inside our buildings, funding. That is a lot of partners that have said, I believe in children, I believe in Richmond Community Schools, I believe in what Richmond Community Schools is doing. And so this, even though we celebrate this, and I want to celebrate it, there's just a lot more that happens, and it's really more about a concept and the support that we give to our kids. After December 2012, this is what ties into the master planning that you adopted. It was pretty critical to you as a board. We went through an entire evaluation process. We met with, Bob Coddington and I met with administrators in our district, our principals. We looked at the data. We received recommendations from a sustainability committee on what are those services that really, really are having a major impact in what we want to sustain through the master planning process. So we are going to have some closeout processes for the grant. So administratively, from January to April, May, there will be the closeout and a full evaluation and finance report that has to be accomplished. And that's my responsibility. In addition to that, I will still continue to serve in the capacity of student attendance, responsibility for student attendance, student records, overseeing communications and mentoring, and the countywide partnership for youth responsibility. We have a staff person that handles the finance piece of this. This is over $6 million. It's a pretty large piece, and she will be working with us through that closeout process. And then a data technician coordinator, Tim Rudisell, will be working with us as well. He has really been integral to collecting the data, transferring our data from PowerSchool into the databases with our partners so they can actually analyze the impact that they're having with our kids. I think a lot of that was done even with communities and schools this week. I mean, if you really think about it, it's a lot of work and a lot of technology went into this whole process to be able to upload that data from PowerSchool. The kids are tagged in PowerSchool, upload that data. It loads into their data management system, which is a national CIS data management system, and they are able to immediately start analyzing the data for their kids that they've served versus doing it hand by hand by hand. So it's more real-time data, and they do that 3 times a year during the school year. So those services that we will see continued based on the master plan approval is our relationship with communities and schools, mental health services, positive alternatives. Our school resource officers will be maintained. Fairview site at the Boys and Girls Club, attendance officers. That's out of the general fund. There are 2 additional behavior coaches that we will be keeping on staff, and that is going to, part of the year will come out of Safe Schools. The rest will working with Title II and funding those. So we've been able to really hone in on what those services were and what those were critical to keep through the process. I do want to say, I think it's important for me to say publicly that each one of those partners are really funded at a different level. With communities and schools, we couldn't continue out of the general fund to fund them at the full 100% that we're doing now. So CIS has been very busy out fundraising to make sure that the level of service continues for our school buildings. So they've gone to the community and basically, and I love the way that Vivian said this, look, Richmond Community Schools believes in us, they're willing to give us amount of dollars, we need you to help raise that match. And that makes a big difference when they take ownership of we need to help raise those dollars too. And I think she's well on her way. With the mental health piece, Centerstone looks like they're going to be our provider. They stepped up to the plate. Bob and I worked very closely with them, and they provided a medical model back to us. And actually, we're actually going to have more people serving our kids with a medical model, and I'm very excited about that.
What's a medical model? I mean,
the medical model is based on them, and the way that it currently works, Mr. Slifer, is that we have their staff basically, they're not on our payroll, but we provide their full-time salary, and they're in our building at that level. What we're saying to them is, we would like you at a certain level, and I think we're getting them like 10, 15 hours a week for us, and then they will start seeing those students one-to-one, and that they will be billed either to private practice or to Medicaid or to Medicare. Is that the best way to say it, Mr. Coddington?
Well, that helps explain how we're taking a program that we infuse 1.1 to 1.2 million a year in to sustain. According to our master plan, we're only going to support about 300,000 of it.
Correct.
So,
right.
So.
And a part of that is the partners coming to the table and saying we can do things differently too. Their attitude has been great. Instead of saying no, we need what we've always had, they've said we want to be still a partner with Richmond Community Schools. We'll help make it work too in other avenues. So I give credit to them as well. So I want to explain, just give a picture of how this works during this transition very briefly. Our office will continue to do those supportive services, but what's going to overlap that in time frame is more of my involvement as a convener with the Countywide Partnership for Youth. So we're going to ensure that the Countywide Partnership for Youth, that energy that it had originally and the energy it's had through the grant process doesn't die. So I'm going to spend a little bit more time. We're reviewing their youth development plan that was adopted in 2004-05, and we've had county forums, and we're renewing that youth development plan, and it will be submitted publicly July and August to the community. In the meantime, also overlapping all of that are our evaluation services to ensure that we're still reviewing what's happening with Richmond Community Schools. What's been great about the evaluation service with the grant is that it's also helping all of our partners to improve their service that they're giving to not only our students of Richmond Community Schools, but to their service they're giving, like Boys and Girls Club, to their on-site students, whether it's here or Hagerstown or in other places. And then again, I'll continue to do the administrative requests given by Dr. Borf in that area. So I want to talk about just some initial data, and this really is hot off the press. There's a couple of these slides that say draft because the evaluators are still looking at it and making sure it's as clean as possible. As we look at the data, again, I just want to make sure that we highlight the importance of the services that we're offering to our kids and how unique it is among any other school in the county. Our attendance rate, we started tracking that back 07-08, but some of our baseline data came from there. Our preliminary data shows us at 95.2%, still holding strong. Our goal has been 95. That is what we were hoping for, and so we're still holding strong to that. I will say our elementary buildings are doing fantastic with attendance rate. They're doing really, really well. Our high school still struggles a little bit, and so that pulls our percentage down district-wide. But that is a preliminary number that we have. It's still being cleaned up and going student by student and making sure we're good to go before that's uploaded to the state DOE. But I was excited to at least give you a preliminary data on that. The other piece that we were asked to look at is community involvement from our kids. And we wanted to really look at how are we impacting our kids and encouraging them to do things outside their building. So we look at, every year we do a survey directly one-on-one with our youth. And we started this in 2011, and we just got these results back just last week, actually. You can see that we have had some slight improvements in that area, especially in that one-time area. With dentists, we see improvements of their volunteering at least one time, up to 20%. Test is up as well, and the high school is up as well. And we're excited about that because that means our kids are having an opportunity to give back to their community. They're seeing that. We're putting resources in place for our kids to give back to their community and be involved as well. This is a bar graph of the same information that I just went over. Another survey that we talk about is school climate. we ask our students in the middle school and the high school, and we started this back in 2009, about how many days have you missed of school because you do not feel safe. And the goal was we want that none line to increase and get higher. And so you always want to see that for us. So we've analyzed this and looked at it. It's very interesting how some of the data correlates to some other data, whether it has relationships to school resource officers or office referrals. But we are pleased to see some movement in that at test compared to 2012, and some movement of that at the high school as well. That and in the report, and I would be happy to share that with you. I'd like to get the final one to you, though. It's much more detailed because it talks about safety going to school or going from school to home, locations in the buildings. It's a very detailed report and survey that our students complete. And then also we just want to highlight, and I don't have the most recent data analyzed yet, and it'll take a little while, but we do have the August to December data on those counseling services that we provide to our students. Just one of those unique student support services that we have for our kids. And in this again is just August to December. All of our data has been submitted to our evaluator just 2 weeks after school. So it's going to be a little bit longer before we get some of that back from them. This is the individual buildings, and it's unique students who have received counseling. Now, I want to just make sure you understand what that means when we say counseling. That could mean 3 minutes where there was an interaction with 2 students on a bus. They get off the bus, and they need to have just a quick check-in, check-out with a counselor to get them refocused on their day so they go to learn. It could mean 15 minutes, and it could mean 30 minutes, and you'll see a breakdown that was in your packet as well of what that looked like. But I think the word counseling might be a little bit confusing for some. That does not mean it's an intense 30 to 90-minute session. That is just how many unique kids that counselor touched in that building.
Is that individual students? Is that what you mean by unique?
By unique. Yes, ma'am, it is. This is our total numbers from August to December, and those that were a part of our session back in August when we looked at the third-year data. I think Mrs. Robinson, you were there, and Mrs. Baumgartner, you were there. I can't remember who else was there, but I think that was a big shock for some people, were our numbers of students that were touched by our counselors. And so in this case, that's the breakdown. What I want to explain between this 419, those are students that actually went through a screening process where the counselor might have been with them more than 2 or 3 times. And they thought, let me do it. There's a test they use that we agreed to, a screening test they used that we agreed to when the grant started. They screen the student to see if they need additional services. And that's a referral that then is moved out from our building into a permanent counselor. And so at this time, there were 72 referrals that had been sent out of that 419 of students that needed more intense, more one-on-one services for their own dedicated counselor. And then this is the breakdown. This was actually added this year. This is the first time that the evaluators added this. And again, it's one of those building processes you learn as you go on looking at data. They want to break it down in a pie chart of how much of our time is dedicated. And for me, I wanted to know how much time are our kids staying out of the classroom. I wanted to see, are they 90 minutes outside of a classroom? Where was that happening, in which building? And so I was actually pleased to see that it wasn't as high as I thought. That 0 to 15 or the 16 to 30 is really the majority of that time for those students. And some of that 16 to 30 could be done during their lunch. I mean, if you walk into a building, you will see that a counselor is not just sitting still. They are constantly working and helping students every day and every minute of that day. So this was helpful for me to be able to see the breakdown of how much time was being spent with our students. So I want to go back to our measurements of success. that we said why we said the services were important. Improvement to I-STEP scores. We still are looking at preliminary numbers, but what we've seen and the trend that we've seen in the last testing years has been good. And again, it's not about one thing. I think it's all of the services that are being offered to our students. Improved attendance. Our attendance is staying very steady. And the behavior component, we will have that more analyzed data to be able to share, and hopefully soon, in July, maybe end of June, to be able to share that and see where we're going with our improved behavior. So what are our next steps in our transition process? We want to ensure that all of our services and contracts are in place for the 2012-13 year. I will be meeting with our partners in the next 2 to 3 weeks, and it's going to look a little bit different. We have to do this transition conversation, the way you close out the grant. There's a lot of work that goes into that we have to get ready for the federal government. Collecting the data, finishing collecting the data for this past school year, analyzing it, and making those adjustments for the new school year. We will be completing the youth development plan as a transition for the countywide partnership for youth, and you will have invitations to come to be a part of that presentation. We need to finalize the countywide data center for our partners. Part of what Tim Rudisell has been doing is working with a web-based organization, web-based system that all of this data has gone into, and it can be accessible to our partners as they write grants. And we want to be able to expand that and offer it not just about youth-serving organizations, but that we can offer that beyond to economic development, conversations, and beyond for housing as well. And then we know it is critical for us in the next 6 to 9 months to look for additional resources for our partners and look for additional resources for Richmond Community Schools to continue the trend that we have had in our learning and in our attendance and our behavior. And I'm excited to do that. I'll take any questions.
Questions? I wanted, on your annual report, do the performance indicators, do they change each year?
The performance indicators do you mean, are they updated?
Yeah, or do they stay relatively the same?
What we measure stays the same. Okay. The results of those obviously would change. Do you have one in particular you're looking at?
No, I was just wondering if if they changed, because I saw some places where you said that you'd look at the grant and then change or upgrade or whatever you needed.
And that would be programming, just like you would do in your classroom.
Okay.
I mean, once you receive data as a teacher, you're going to make some adjustments, or if you get evaluated by your administrator, you'll make those adjustments. So what's important for us is if we see a trend that's not working or we're not seeing a movement on, what do we have to do different? I'll give you an example of one that we've just not been able to get off the ground and go, and we really intended for there to be assistance for students that were struggling in a home where there might be some addiction issues. Mm-hmm. And we just never could get a provider at the table to give us those services. And so that never moved. Now, am I giving up? No, because we still have students that are experiencing that household and that environment, and they need that assistance. And so we're going to have to find a different way to make that happen now. But that expectation that's in the grant is still there. I'm just having to say we didn't accomplish it, which kills me.
Okay, and you have you have your baseline data.
Mm-hmm.
When you do your final evaluation, will you see the 5 years or?
Yes, ma'am.
5.5, whatever it is that.
When we've done the grant year to year, right? When we've done the grant year to year, I report just on that year, which doesn't. I mean, I can look at the big picture with the evaluator, but I'm just reporting year to year. That final report, and that's why they give us 90 to 120 days to close that out. All the data has to be collected. The evaluators have to do a synopsis, and now it's going to be 4.5 years practically of the entire project, and it'll be huge. But it will be that comparison of how did we do from our baseline to where we ended. Did it work? Did it not work? Any recommendations they would have to Richmond Community Schools or to the community of what we need to do and where we need to be a little bit more successful and put more emphasis at. But yeah, it'll.
And then will you report that out like you do the annual ones with the?
I would hope so. I know they're very eager for it because it helps them. They've benefited from this a great deal to be able to apply for additional grants, or not in just grants, but I know in particular 2 partners, they now have evaluation data when they go to funders here locally that just write a check to them. They have information they can share now that they didn't before on how they're doing.
Are you talking about reporting out something different than in this format?
I'm talking about the whole 5-year span. I mean, she has a baseline data there.
Because this is like the
Yeah.
4-year span here.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
I think it would be different. I think the way the evaluators will do it is more of a booklet format that's, for me, I get that because I've been looking at it for 4 years, but for the general public, that's not user-friendly. We would have to do it differently.
Well, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, now we're on to our press conference. Did you have any questions out there? Okay. We've done consent items, so is there anyone from the public who would like to speak in public commentary? I don't think we have any. Bridget's back there. Follow up on old business. Does anyone have anything they'd like to talk about? Superintendent Board reports, reflections, and celebrations. I know we have a couple.
Commencement.
Commencement was wonderful, and I want to thank, I have 2 things I want to say. Ray knew every name of every student that went up there. I mean, she's like Mom. She gave them all hugs, and she's all emotional about it, and I think we're really lucky to have her. And also, I'm not sure about this number, but I was told that there were 47 teachers there, and that's the most that they've had in recent years. And I think the kids really appreciated that, too, as they were walking down the aisle, seeing the teachers on the sides, and I think the teachers enjoyed it. So I want to thank the teachers for being there also.
While we're on the subject of commencement, I'd like to talk about the gifts that I received that day.
Explain that, yeah. I don't
I'm not sure why I
understand.
got those, but for those who might have been watching, the bulk of the seniors came forward, and as they accepted their diploma and shook my hand, they also dropped a little googly eye type thing into my hand. And I'm not sure what the symbolism of that was. I would tell
Didn't they
many
do
of them
that last year, too, though?
No, not last year.
Something. What?
They give gifts every year.
Oh, okay,
Last year
got
it was
it.
marbles. One year
Okay.
it was yes, it was pennies one year, and then one year it was I would receive a piece of a Lego piece. And at the end of that time, they gave me the box, and it was a
that's
motorcycle. You could build a motorcycle with pieces of it. I don't know if that was a statement that I should be riding off into the sunset or what. But,
I really
What
would
are
like
you
to
going to
know
do
what
with the googly eyes?
I know. I
Oh,
know.
lots of things.
Give them to an art teacher.
I told them
An art
that
teacher could do something
a
pretty cool with that.
superintendent needs many eyes. I appreciated the additional eyes.
I wonder who thinks that up. I mean, where does that come from? Student council? Or?
I'm not sure.
I told them we use them at the preschool.
Yeah.
It was a good class, though. That was a fine class, 2012, and we appreciate the contributions they made. They had good leadership, and it was
a great
nice,
class.
very nice group of students.
Aaron?
The commencement speeches were very nice. I particularly enjoyed the one in regards to the thanks for the support from the parents and who moved into our school corporation from outside of the city. But I mean, it was a very appropriate speech of thanks, and in line with that, I would also like to say that it was appropriate because as many parents are there, you know, we talk about the commitment that the students have, but we felt, I say we, collectively, communities fail to remember that it takes a strong commitment for parents to get their children to school, not just one day at a time, but, you know, weeks and weeks at a time, and keep that foundation of education at the home. So it was appropriate that we thank the parents who don't get enough. And then to those as they say, those special shout-outs to those parents of the students who had the perfect attendance for, you know, a
13
year,
years.
2 years,
13
5 years,
15.
and 13 years. Wow. Wow, it just says a lot, and, you know, this is for all the parents who are out there who really understand that education is a necessity not only in the home, but in our community.
And then, along with perfect attendance, one of our students won the car for perfect attendance from Wetzel. And who all sponsors that besides?
First Bank and Wetzel.
Wanted
First
to
Bank
make-
is the main sponsor, and
Okay.
Wetzel is the car sponsor.
Wanted to make sure I thank both of them. And
He did take the money.
took the scholarship money.
Yeah.
That's wonderful, though. And can you give me the name of the person again, just so I can? Dalton Raper. Okay. Anyone else?
Well, I think we also should remember, and I can't remember the exact sum now, but it was staggering, the amount of scholarship money.
3.5 million.
Yeah, that was awarded to our kids was just unbelievable.
Okay, now we have a review of the tentative meeting agenda.
The tentative agenda, and this truly is so tentative.
Does that mean you're not going to be here?
What I mean is, who knows what additional items will have to be on there. Snapshots of success will include the early college program recognition, and I'm on this is the reception for early college program. And Pam, is this based on last year's, or have they made arrangements to do this? Okay, there is confirmation of that. Also, next time, under snapshots or maybe under reports, West End Bank will be here to discuss expanding their branches within the elementaries. They'll have a recommendation. Donations, approval of a hearing on superintendent contract, which is now a new state requirement. Frequently asked questions under the master plan, but probably some updates. Consent items would include Japanese language school agreement. Filing of reports would include the monthly financial report and student handbooks at the elementary and intermediate schools, if they're ready. And the rest, is rather perfunctory.
We'll need to bring the Title I plan also next time.
Why is that not on there? Okay.
Your first
The Title
edition.
I, like I said, this is so tentative.
And the board members get emailed the colored drawings of that? You got that in a
Is that
PDF format or something?
that has that been sent to us by electronic format, Ron? Okay.
Can-
Yes.
Thank you.
Suzanne?
Just one quick thing before you go, just because that picture came up.
Isn't that
I
neat?
should have said this in celebrations. There are a bunch of people putting in a bunch of time over the summer, and there are kids everywhere. I live across the street from the high school, and a lot of people are keeping kids active during the
Right.
summer, and I appreciate
Look at that number there. That's wonderful. Okay.